Hello, my name is Benjamin Hart. I'm an American attorney and the managing director of Integrity Legal here in Bangkok, Thailand. As the title of this video suggests, we're discussing permanent residence in Thailand, visa runs, border runs. What all are we talking about? And why would you say we went from residence to border runs to extensions? What is that? That doesn't make any sense. Well, what we're talking about, in a sense, it's kind of a history of the expat experience, if you will, in Thailand, in microcosm, if you will. I got to thinking of this after reading a really good article in the Pattaya Mail, pattayamail.com. Article is titled, Thai Immigration, Past, Present, and Future. I'd urge those who are watching this video, go check out that article in detail. A lot of information in there. Good insight into the evolution of the Thai immigration apparatus going back into the 20s all the way up to now. I think immigration's almost 100 years old. I think it's like 95 years old as of this year. But the reason for the video came from an excerpt. Again, I urge folks to read the article. Came from an excerpt in this article. Again, Thai immigration, past, present, and future. Quoting directly, the 80s and 90s witnessed an unparalleled boom in intercontinental air travel. Thai immigration authorities, under government instruction, consciously soft-pedaled visa restrictions by allowing long-stay foreigners to make repeat border runs or in-out flights to renew or extend their visas. By 1991, one-year visas and extensions of stay had appeared, whilst work permit holders were no longer forced to fly to Penang and back every 3 months. Retirement visas were also permitted, although the age at first was 60 years, and the money in a Thai bank was described as, quote, any six-figure sum, unquote, or a minimum of 100,000 baht. So that was an interesting one. And then again, from the same article, there was this excerpt as well. Although regular expansion occurred, particularly as mass air travel became a world feature, it was the 1979 Immigration Act which established the features of registering and controlling foreigners, which are still dominant today. Quoting further, the 1979 Act toughened up visa regulations and insisted on knowing the whereabouts of foreigners during their stay. In fact, the origin of address registration 90-day reporting was to track economic migrants from neighboring countries rather than the millions of leisure tourists who also became caught in the net. Well, yeah, the 90-day reporting was never really intended for so-called tourists. I mean, as evidenced by the fact that the standard tourist visa, not talking about the special tourist visa, which came into effect during COVID, a standard tourist visa is only maxes out at 90 days anyway, so that wasn't really what that was designed for. But interesting stuff here, but one thing I would add is to go back a little further than 79. If you go back into about mid-70s, I believe it was 74, prior to 1974, it's my understanding, I've talked to people over the years, now they're older gentlemen usually now, quite a bit older, that came in prior to, I believe it was 74, when if you were at the airport, you know, when you were coming in, they said, hey, are you a tourist or are you going to stay here? And if you said, I'm going to stay here, they literally stamped you in as a resident then. Your permanent residence was issued on arrival. And I've met people in Thailand that are still in Thailand that have been resident ever since that moment. They had their residence issued right at that time, and they just kind of got grandfathered in because over time the rules did change. And yes, in fact, 1979 did see the introduction of the Immigration Act and the promulgation of the non-immigrant visa categories that we're all very familiar with today, O visas, B visas, and the like. So it's rather interesting, as noted by this article, that, yeah, if you go into so if you go back into the 70s, that's why I started the video by saying, okay, permanent residence, and then it went to border runs. Well, yeah, because people basically, it was very easy to do border runs. Up until really about the time I came on the scene, some 15 years ago, it was possible to do infinite border runs. You just run to a border every 30 days, you get a 30-day stamp and stay in Thailand that way. And there were many people who utilized that for a number of years. So you went from kind of this residence system to the border run system, and then the border run system, they started clamping on it a little bit, clamping down on it a little bit, and then they introduced non-immigrant visas, and people kind of, I think, said, hey, I don't really want to have to run to a border every 30 days. I'm just going to get into a non-immigrant visa. In some cases, you know, they went into a retirement visa, you know, that type of thing. depending on circumstances. Now, one thing I didn't really understand was, forced to fly to Penang and back every 3 months. Whilst work permit holders were no longer forced to fly to Penang and back every 3 months. Well, it's my understanding the initial work permits that were issued in Thailand were lifetime. So the first ones, the initial work permit holders, I believe that was promulgated in the early 1980s. Those folks didn't have to leave at all, or didn't have to deal with their work permit at all. Now, I'm not sure if we're talking about the old multi-entry business visa, which did require folks to, come and go, but the extension system existed at that time, so it was an option to just extend status in Thailand, although maybe some people just didn't want to do that. It was just easier to get on a plane, go out and come back in, whatever. But yeah, border running was much more common, and then sort of extensions became more the norm. And to sort of tack on to the end of that, as we've seen roughly the past 10 years where it was once possible to stay for prolonged periods of time on tourist visa status, Thai immigration has cracked down a lot on that, and they've said, look, we don't want to allow that anymore. So more and more they have created a system wherein you need to be in some form of non-immigrant status in order to maintain long-term immigration status here in the Kingdom of Thailand.